This is the Business Chat Podcast. Welcome to the Business Chat. I am joined by my guest today, Amee Gray. Miss Amee Gray. Amee, how you doing today?
Oh, great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You bet. It's good to see you again. Amee is founder and CEO of RecoverWell. She's coming to us from the LA area, Los Angeles, California. And Amee and I have actually been able to work together a little bit on the side and deal with some marketing things. Today we're talking not about that so much as we are about her innovation, her innovative company, RecoverWell. And again, Amee, welcome to the show. I'm so excited for everyone to hear about your passion, what you're working on. So before we go any further, yeah, you bet. Let's get right into the shtick, the drink. Sometimes we delay that too long. We were just talking about what you brought. It sounds like there's a little narrative behind that, but Amee, without any further delay, what are you drinking?
So I am drinking fire department coffee.
Okay.
I love this company because it's owned, operated, and run by veterans and firemen and other first responders, and the proceeds from their company go towards healthcare, mental health, and physical health scholarships and funding for people who have been injured on the job, being first responders and heroes to our amazing country. So
awesome.
I love this company. Yeah. And the coffee is fantastic. So this morning I'm drinking it's a vanilla bean bourbon blend. And I've had 17 cups and I am completely sober, unfortunately.
She's ready to roll, man, on the Business Chat today. Excellent.
I want to make another plug while I'm
do it.
At
plug
it.
away.
Plug away. So I am wearing a tracksuit with my branding on it. My branding was created by Suited. So thank you so much. I'm so proud of my brand. I wear it everywhere. I've got it on my I don't know if you can see it on my sweats here, but
that is awesome. It's a full tracksuit kind of deal.
A full tracksuit. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. We got to have a tracksuit. So
excellent.
So yeah, as soon as we got this, I was like, oh yeah, that's going on a tracksuit for sure. So yeah, I love it.
Now, and that's probably a conversation stimulator for you as well when you're out and about. Yeah.
Yeah, I wear it all the time. And in fact, I'm looking at getting scrubs for our advocates to wear the brand. And there's all these great women-owned companies that make scrubs. And I'll plug them maybe in our next conversation. But there are some companies out there run by women, and they make these beautiful scrubs that fit nicely and that are super comfortable for our advocates in the hospital.
We are so glad you love it, Amee. It's a great looking brand and an even better looking company, and has a great platform and just a great message. So again, Fire Tower Coffee she's drinking, and they're in Chicago, I'm seeing right here, right?
No, it's Fire Department Coffee, and their
Department
website.
Coffee, yeah. That's right, Fire Department.
Their website is Fire DEPT. I think it's firedepartmentcoffee.com, and you can order it online, and it goes to an amazing cause, both mental health and physical health of injured vets and first responders. I love
awesome. Well, as you can tell, we don't script much around the show here. We just get right into it. Fire Department Coffee, that's awesome. That's cool. And there's a narrative. I don't have the narrative other than I really enjoy, now in my new home state of Michigan, I'm really a fan of Founders Brewing. This is their Oktoberfest. I think they give back basically to 40-year-old men like me that just need a nice cold beer. And so that's their cause is just really good ale. So I'm teasing, but yeah, we'll link up Founders if you're in Michigan and you're looking for something to drink. It's as easy to find as a lake or water or a tree. Amee, on the other hand, has a very unique cup of coffee with her today. You guys can look up online. We'll link both. Young lady, cheers to you. We'll do the virtual cheers. Thanks for being on the show.
Salud.
All right, salute. Excellent. Well, again, we're here to talk about RecoverWell. Those listening and those starting to check out, having to go do other things, make sure you pull up recoverwell.net. We'll also link Amee's LinkedIn and other information where you can reach out to her, follow what they're doing. It's an incredible, innovative company. And Amee, on the website right there, where it says streamlining access to treatment, let's just start there. What is RecoverWell in your words beyond that tagline?
Yeah, so RecoverWell makes it easy for patient advocates who work in hospitals and other crisis centers, courtrooms, schools, that are tasked with finding treatment for their patients or clients for mental health or addiction. It just simplifies the entire process and just takes all the complicating factors out of it, because the goal is to help everybody access healthcare for mental health and addiction.
Yeah. And that sounds like it's quite a need too.
Oh my gosh, it's a desperate need. There are so many people suffering. 282,000 people died from substance use related disease or injuries last year alone.
Yeah.
We see that every single year. But yes.
Yeah.
So we want to help with that. We also want to help reduce recidivism, which is the continuing active addiction, as well as we want to help reduce suicide. Another very pervasive issue in our country right now. I think there were close to 70,000 suicide deaths last year alone. Oof. So we hope to make a significant impact on both by empowering patient advocates to more easily help their patients get the treatment that they need.
Yeah, and with all the nuances with addiction, which is a big term, right? And with treatment, there's such specialized treatment needed. You've been able to really educate our team. As Suited was working with you, and then even before this conversation, I'm just stunned, honestly, at how many issues like this are out there, and you're taking this one head on. For folks listening, in the audience, Amee, like I was talking about, is largely LinkedIn. So a few people are probably curious, even though you can go to your profile and see right there what you've done. Tell us a story that isn't being told on LinkedIn leading up to right before RecoverWell was even kind of a thought, but started to kind of plant its seed. Talk to us about just what did you do after high school, college? What's your background like? People want to know who you are,
Yeah, so I've worked in healthcare for a long time. Before RecoverWell, in my corporate life, I worked for a company that served patients with catastrophic injuries. And my role there was to help patients find services for their injuries, orthopedic care, brain injury care, so, traumatic brain injuries, severe burns. And so that was what I did there, was help to navigate patients towards the products and services that my company held, and we were focused on injury patients. So that led perfectly into understanding how to build out a network and help folks navigate towards care for a different diagnosis in the healthcare industry, mental health and addiction. I actually had an intimate brush with the need for navigation in this diagnosis. My father had an overdose in 2015 from prescribed OxyContin. And having worked in the healthcare industry and understanding how referrals work and how insurance works and how the healthcare system functions and lots of systems around healthcare function, I really thought that it would be easy. In that crisis moment, I thought, okay, we've got to go to the next step. That'll be easy. I understand insurance. I understand healthcare. And it was humiliating, in fact, to learn that this industry is not well connected to hospitals. So if you go to the hospital for a stomach ache and they find something like a tumor in your stomach, or you go and you have got a bad headache and they find a tumor, or you go in and you're having heart pain and they determine that you have a heart attack, they're always going to stabilize you in the emergency room and then direct you to what you're going to need next to determine if it is a terminal or chronic illness. And they're going to tell you what specialists you need to see. And very often they'll kind of write you a prescription for what your treatment plan is right there in the emergency room. Yeah. But if you go into the emergency room with suicidal tendencies, or with even homicidal tendencies, or an addiction where you're suffering from withdrawal symptoms, or you're suffering and asking for help. And I think that's the key thing here, is that when people go into the emergency room, they're really asking for help with their addiction. And there's nothing that, we quickly learn that there's nothing available. There are no tools in place. There are no process and procedures in place that everybody employs to help people get to these treatments. And, when just before I built RecoverWell, having worked in healthcare network business development, I thought, well, this has got to be unique. We've got to be in a silo. My dad's in a small town. Maybe it's because he's in a small area and there's not a lot of resources.
Yeah, you're thinking it was just you. Yeah.
Right. Of course, as we all do when we come up against a problem, we're like, oh, it must be me, And so I didn't rest on that. I went out and did a massive amount of research, starting with, the internet, Googling things, trying to figure out why was it so hard for us to get treatment? Why didn't they have readily available resources that they directly plugged us into? And what I learned is that it's just not something that the healthcare industry has been able to tackle.
Yeah.
And there's this big disconnect that exists between hospitals and treatment providers. And it's ironic because the treatment providers actually really need patients in order to stay profitable and stay in business.
Right.
And so they want to connect with the hospitals, but there's lots of reasons why that is actually very difficult for them to do. And so my thought was, let's build a vehicle where the hospitals can find trusted, vetted treatment providers that are going to serve their patients at the right level of care at the right time and can meet them where they're at, their comorbidities, their diagnosis for other health ailments and other issues that they might have,
Sure.
ADA compliance, all of that.
So a piece you pointed out, I want to pause because some of us dummies in your space just don't understand. And you threw out so many good pieces there of this narrative and this problem, right? This crisis we're in I thought I heard you say basically, you implied there are existing focused treatment facilities out there. The need that you started stitching was going, people are just getting thrown into kind of a shoebox that is assumed, well, this is what's going to be what's best for them, or they can't find the facility. It's not so much that there's, nobody's got any bad intention, I would think. And, that a lot of people kind of sneering right now going, really, about healthcare? But in general, I don't think that's really anybody's intention to go, we're trying to throw you out to pasture in something that's not helpful. It's that, like you said, there wasn't a meaningful, fast responding kind of repository directory of kind of moving folks into the next step. Is that kind of what RecoverWell has stepped in and done?
Yeah, absolutely. The things that make it complex, whether you have a vast knowledge of healthcare or whether you're a person or a loved one supporting someone, is that,
sure,
you can go online and you can say, find it a rehab near me. Rehab is a term that I really hate because there are lots of things that qualify as rehabs, right? And you'll get pages and pages and pages of results on Google. Mm-hmm. And you can start calling them one by one, and you can spend a half an hour on the phone with someone who has, the need for you to come to their facility, only to find out that they don't take your insurance. You can't afford it if there's any cash balance beyond the insurance, and may not take you because you have existing comorbidities or dual diagnosis. They may not be able to treat someone who had a suicide attempt. They might not be able to treat someone who has psychosis, which is very common, or bipolar disorder or trauma, right? Which is the gateway to addiction. So there are a lot of facilities that can't take patients that have these extenuating conditions. And cancer, which is huge, and Hep C, Hep B, dialysis. There are lots of things that a treatment facility will say, I actually can't work with you because I can't support what you have physically going on. And so what we do is we have a very sophisticated matching platform that looks at what the patient needs first, not what insurance they have or what their budget is, but what do they need to be able to undergo a course of treatment.
Right. And healthcare sort of it feels like, a locomotive on train tracks as with society is in a Tesla kind of flying off the ground a little. And sometimes I was just in a conversation with a young woman who was saying that, a cataract surgery in her family that's needed can't happen until she qualifies for it being a certain like her vision actually degrading to a certain point. She needs it today, can't drive at night, but the insurance and everybody goes like this and goes, oh, we can't do this until certain boxes get crossed. And it's just kind of silly and not directly related to what you're talking about, but it's all kind of this vein. And again, listeners listening to this are all thinking of their stories of where, again, like you, as I was chuckling, because you're highlighting this complexity where I'm going, yeah, I can completely see how this comes off the rails quickly when it's not simple or simplistic to get to the root. So going through my questions. Go ahead.
I want to say this too. I sort of have a love-hate relationship with insurance and
I can imagine
both private and public, because there are so many criteria set that determine whether a person is eligible for treatment or eligible for care.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a very gray line there. That's hard to get a patient into treatment who literally needs it and wants it. I mean, I could go on and on about that. Yeah. It's not good.
Your passion's obvious, and that's kind of what I was going to go back and relate to. So you kind of went through your story, talked about working in healthcare. Before we move on to kind of the, get a little deeper here on the level of what it is RecoverWell does and where it's headed and what the kind of the challenges you were already kind of highlighting. You mentioned one thing when we were talking where you said, you remember your mother effectively building out RecoverWell in front of you. I heard what you meant by that, but tell our listeners what you meant by that, because it's kind of interesting. You as a young woman kind of going, well, my mom was building this out. What was she doing that was building out RecoverWell?
Yeah, so I love giving a shout out to my mom. My mom was a social worker in the 80s and 90s when the crack cocaine epidemic was really at its height. And my mom worked for the Department of Children and Family Services, and her goal was to keep babies with their mommies and their dads. And crack cocaine was keeping that from happening, and the services were limited. And I remember going on these drives on the Kingdom Angus Highway back in those days every Sunday and being like, oh, not another long drive. But my mom would say, pull over. And she would see a telephone booth. Y'all don't all remember what a telephone booth is, but
yeah, I do. Yeah,
but she would jump out and steal the phone book, and then she would lay them out on the kitchen table at night and keep a clipboard and write everything down, and then make phone calls and figure out like what level of service do you provide and who do you provide it to and who qualifies. And so that was like the analog version of what we're doing here, is that we do that research and we set it up and put it in there so that if you're a social worker and you got 30, 40 cases a day, whether you work in the Department of Children and Family Services or at healthcare services or at the hospital emergency room, you don't have to do all that research. You don't have to go through our today's Yellow Pages, Google, and get sucked into all these phone calls. You can just plug the information in there and boom, we zap you a bunch of options that are the right fit for your patient that day, and you just can help them apply to those programs very easily. And it happens fast. Our goal is to have them get options before they leave the hospital, which today, they want to get them out fast. That's the goal of the hospital. Turn those beds over so they can serve more people in the community.
And it's in a sense to meet you on that point, but as a guy that completely does not understand that industry and has all respect and empathy for healthcare workers, for folks. And I mean, let's be specific. Healthcare is a broad term, but you're in an OR, an ER, you're in a clinic, you're on the front lines, and those folks do put up a lot. And maybe they do need to keep turning over beds in the sense that that's not where the patient should stay. But we talked a little bit before this call about how, and you mentioned this, and I'd love for you to touch on this on my third kind of question. It was just fascinating the way you said it, and how it can relate to some personal stories, friends in my life. You said, hey, the lines, Drew, are kind of blurring, between prescription drugs and addiction. And it feels like it happens there, right? We need to get them out of the bed.
Right.
We can't plug them into some specialized thing. We don't have the time. We've got a backed up waiting room, but here's a bottle of pills. Is that kind of what you're seeing in a really oversimplified kind of version? Tell me what you see.
It can be. And there are actually some great prescriptions available.
No joke, yeah.
That can mitigate the process of recovery, like Suboxone is a great it's a great pill that they can give to people who are struggling with opioid addiction. And there's also Vivitrol, which can help people who are suffering from alcohol addiction. But I think it's really important for people to understand how the hospital system works.
Sure.
Hospitals are their own system within healthcare, which is very broad, right?
Right.
The emergency room, and I hear this a lot from patients that I end up working closely with, is that, oh, they just wanted to get me out of there. They just wanted to throw me out. Well, hospitals for mental health and addiction patients, the purpose that they serve there is just to stabilize them and get them to the next level of care. That's actually true for any diagnosis, whether it's a heart attack, stroke, for anything. So the goal of the hospital is to stabilize them. Now, if you have an extenuating injury or illness like a liver failure or brain bleed that requires being admitted to the hospital, then they will certainly admit you. But hospitals don't generally carry the specialty of drug and alcohol rehabilitation. They have world-class surgical centers, they have incredible maternity wards, and those are advertised on the front page of their website. You're going to know how they make their money there. But the emergency room, the role of the emergency room is to stabilize and get them out to the next level of care.
Yeah.
And where we've really floundered in the hospital system is getting patients to addiction treatment. Part of that is because it's a fairly new diagnosis. It wasn't acknowledged until sometime in the 50s that addiction is actually a disease and that it's treatable. It is chronic, meaning that recidivism happens and they may have episodes multiple times, and it is fatal. It is terminal. So if it is not treated, it can kill you. There's two results: recovery or death, right? And so hospitals are really behind on getting patients to recovery. They're great at getting patients to cancer recovery. They're great at getting patients to heart disease recovery, but they are not great at getting patients to mental health and addiction recovery. And RecoverWell is here to help them do that better, more efficiently, help those hospitals save money so that they can put it back into programming and other things. Right. I mean, hospitals are losing about $65 billion a year that they absorb, and they're passing another, I think it's like $350 billion in losses onto taxpayers for addiction.
Wow.
We all are paying for it.
Yeah.
We're all paying for it.
And that's key right there. We're paying for it. The solution you are providing and the conversation you're trying to have and are successfully having, looks like you guys are really getting some traction in the market. And I keep seeing you come up in different news pieces and articles and mentions on LinkedIn, and it's all really exciting. You said something before that I think is key in why you said, again, why addiction is a little late to the game. It wasn't recognized as a term, as a concept, like you said, until kind of post-war generally. And then therefore it lagged behind so many other more recognized institutional, no, we're going to design our whole hospital system. It's a business, right? We're going to monetize staff around, and rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of cancer to treat. There's people having babies. There's real things that they do, but it's a gray area, like you said, when we're trying to place somebody in recovery in an addiction. And I think what you're showing me and our listeners is explaining why RecoverWell is here and why this is a need, is because technology like you've developed, and more importantly, a network from a person like you that's from that culture, is late because it was late to come up in adoption. In other words, it's a very logical lag. They're lagging in an area that goes back 75 years plus, that now finally, and like you said, I'm thinking of your mom tearing out yellow pages. It makes me laugh, but how sad that today, I mean, there might be social workers listening to this going, that's not funny. That's me today. He or she listening has that notepad. They've got their personal, and they're building that. And if you're listening and hearing what Amee does, and again, more importantly than the technology, which is great, which she's understood needed to be built, y'all, is the care and the understanding, again, for those suffering. And I think there's nothing cooler to see a need and a piece of technology and a new business come to the market that's got passion and that's got the story you've got. So kudos to you on that. A couple of things you mentioned, and this, I actually looked this up and you were spot on. Couldn't find hard numbers, but you said, hey, Drew, opioid crisis, like, yes, real, but alcohol addiction is killing as many or more. And that's just one kind of more metaphor to remember as we go, yeah, that's true. We have what we can see. We as obvious needing, as you mentioned, first wave, emergency room kind of triage, but there's this whole other crisis happening, opioid for sure, but even just with alcoholism still that seems like we haven't really gotten a handle on as a society. But take it from there on to what else do you see kind of RecoverWell addressing?
I think it's important for people to understand that overdose is not the only death that occurs from addiction. Okay, many, many other things kill people that have addiction. There are addictions that cause cancer. There are addictions that cause liver failure, brain bleeds. Addiction kills more people than just people who are suffering from addiction. When you talk about DUIs, how many victims of drinking and driving accidents there are out there. Yeah. And look, I'll say this. I'm what in the industry they call a normie. I don't have an addiction. I am the daughter of someone who suffered with a substance use disorder and mental health issues in my family. And I think it's really important for people to understand that when someone is in an active addiction, they need help. And it's not just for them, it's for you, it's for everybody. We talk about homelessness, we talk about poverty, child abuse, neglect, crime, violence. All of these things come back to, very frequently and very often come back to addiction, trauma, mental health, things that we have the power to fix if we would let go of our bias. If we would let go of, those people, if we stop othering addiction, because I got news for you, it does not discriminate. There are people in every possible demographic of people, economic, racial, religion, where addiction is real, it's present, and it's tearing families apart. It's people are losing their jobs, people are homeless and on the streets because they have this physical addiction. And I think it's really important too to understand is that once it becomes an active addiction, it is not a choice. People aren't just trying to get high and be hedonistic and feel good. They're nursing real physical or emotional wounds. And also getting off of drugs is not what it was in the 50s and 60s. You know, it's not like I'm gonna put down the pot. It's not like that anymore. Physical withdrawal is like the worst illness you've ever had. It is like the worst flu. It's excruciatingly physically painful and it makes people sick as hell. So they get this dope sick and they are like, I got two choices. I can go through this alone or I can, and possibly die from it, by the way. Yeah. I want to also point this out. The third leading cause of death in our prison system is unsupervised withdrawal. Okay? Wow. That's nasty. So it's another big thing I want to tackle someday. But all these 30-somethings that you hear of, all these families that are like, oh, they suddenly died of a heart attack or a stroke out of nowhere in their 30s. Nah, they did not. They died from withdrawing at home because the family was too embarrassed to get them professional help. That's the true truth. And or, you know, that withdrawal unsupervised is very deadly. So anyway, I get riled up about that. That's what this show's for.
Get riled up. Let me rile you up some more. So I mean, this is really good for you to be able to kind of shotgun around the different topics and say, you know, it's the little this, little of that. Folks can absorb a lot again of what's on your LinkedIn profile about you and a lot what's on the website, but we're here to put out what's not there. One thing that, you and I had talked about when you first were working with our team at Suited was just the nature of RecoverWell approaching the market and how it was still kind of a little bit up in the air, although admittedly more of a B2B resource, right, for hospitals and for the recovery centers themselves, the treatment facilities. Would you say, though, to someone listening to this going, could somebody not, Amee, approach the brand, approach RecoverWell? Is there a function of the website or the technology that an individual going, I'm a very particular case and I would like to seek treatment, I'd rather not go to Google. I'd rather be in your network. How's that work for an individual?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there's a page on our website that it says seeking treatment. you can go in there and set an appointment with our case management team, and we will help you find the treatment that you need. No cost, no charge, because not everybody ends up in the emergency room or in a courtroom, right? Some people, some people go, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep going through this cycle and this being dope sick or like going through all this pain. Or maybe you're a loved one who's trying to help your kid or your spouse or your sibling find treatment. And it's cyber secure and HIPAA compliant. We don't share information. We put your information into the system and match you to the right treatment providers. And then we ask you, do you want to apply to this program? And P.S., that's true whether you've got insurance, like the highest, the best plan, or if you have Medicaid or Medicare. We're here for everybody. We're not here for the people that have the best insurance policies. We're here for everybody. Awesome. That should never be a catalyst for getting care.
I agree. I think most listening do as well. And I think, again, seeing that this is addressing an issue that feeds back into your streets, everybody, to our society, and we're paying for it. And it's absorbed in your insurance and hospital bills and taxes, and that systemic figure eight of passing the bill and kicking the can down the road is trying to be somewhat stopped and a tourniquet to the problem with RecoverWell. As we kind of wrap up, Amee, and again, like you said, before we kicked off, there's just too many things to cover. I think folks have a good grasp on what you do, but now to go off the script a little bit, what's coming next for RecoverWell? Any events y'all are attending or sponsoring? Are you guys in a kind of a fundraising round? Is the next goal to expand in a certain geographic or whatever you'd like to share with what's relevant, you think, with the company? Yeah, go for it.
Well, we are in Los Angeles right now and slowly making our way into Orange County. And we're fundraising right now. We're trying to get some capital backing so that we can expand throughout the state of California and then bring this nationwide to the entire country, because this solution works. We're in pilot with about 215 patient advocates that work in 43 hospitals, I believe is our last count, throughout Los Angeles County. So they're actively using this to place their patients. We're seeing really high rates. Traditionally, throughout the history of addiction being a diagnosis, patients get connected to treatment around 10%. So there's like 22 million patients that hit the hospitals a year looking for help with their addiction. And 90% of those do not get a referral to treatment. Here in Los Angeles, at the hospitals that we're working in, our last count as of yesterday, 31%. So we are making incredible improvements on the rate of admissions to treatment facilities. And that includes helping people get to treatment that they can actually commit to. If you've got a full-time job and you can't go into residential treatment, I got you. MAT is a great resource where they can go and get daily medications, weekly medications that can help them titrate off of their prescribed medications or alcohol. But also outpatient treatment. They can do a few days of detox to get the shit out of their system, and then get into daily or whatever a person needs to get healthy and get right with their body and get productive in the world and take better care of their families and their friends and their loved ones. I'm here for that. And if you go through the emergency room, ask the social worker or ask the case manager, please, can you put me in the RecoverWell system so I can find help? Or you just call me directly. All of my information is on this website. Just go in, make an appointment with me. I will personally, most likely, it will be me. I will reach out to you and I will help you find what you need, and I'll stay with you. I work with people throughout and keep them encouraged. It's about community.
Man, it's awesome.
Love.
It is. And as you're in the series, of Innovators, really the core of that I found as we've curated and reached out to professional friends like you, by the way, and folks that I've met and people we don't know, there's this common thread of passion is what drives the innovation. When you see the problem, you go, I'm going to take the time, where everyone else is either too busy or just won't take the time. And the system can't. The system is us as a collective, right? It's too big to fix itself. So here we have folks, Amee Gray again from RecoverWell. Check out recoverwell.net. We're going to link everything about what she's doing, where you can contact her, which you can easily do on the website. And again, they are, making it easy for patients to get into treatment. That's it. There's so much more she's doing. But if you were really just to walk away going, what is this? What does it do? People need this specialized treatment for addiction and recovery treatment. And she's making it easy. And she's helping get right to the root of the problem. Amee, thanks so much for your time. We have to do this again. We couldn't cover everything. Absolutely.
No, thank you.
It's the nature of the beast, right? You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, hey, all the best, Amee. We'll see you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for my beautiful brand.
Oh, yes.